Today we're taking a look at Gemini in Chrome, the helpful AI assistant that's baked right into the Chrome browser. Now, a lot of browsers have made the news lately, like OpenAI's Atlas and Opera's Neon, both of which have integrated AI. So does Firefox now. I think it rounds out all the major browsers now have an integrated AI component. And it's super powerful and convenient. Most of the reason for using the integrated browser is to take advantage of in-context question and answering. So you can go and you can ask Gemini a question right in line. Let's take a look at how Gemini works inside of Chrome right now. Up at the top, you'll see this little open Gemini in Chrome icon. If I click it, I get a floating window panel, which is nice because I like this because I can swap it over to my other monitor, bring it in and out of the way, and it's easy to resize. So it's basically just our chat window, what we get at gemini.google.com. And all the chats that I initiate inside of Gemini and Chrome are already synced to my Gemini account, meaning that I can go back inside the Gemini app on my phone or in the browser and pull up the conversation I had about that web page or collection of pages. Now, what does Gemini in Chrome actually do? Well, let's give it some tasks to look at in this article. Let's say I'm on my Science and Technology Papers blog, which outlines different cutting edge technology, preprint releases, and educational content from around the world. So you'll notice that I have a little viewership, how many views this article has had on each item. So I wanted to go out and see how many views this page has, how many views each of these articles has on this page. I can go in and ask Chrome to do this math for me. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's going to go out and explore the page content. This adds the page to the context of Gemini, and if you're familiar with the API, the context of Gemini can be included as URLs in the request when you're making an API call. So I imagine that behind the scenes it's doing something very similar, where it's grounding the truth of my request inside of the page. Now, it can also go out and fetch other additional resources if it needs to. I haven't seen a setting for that yet, but I've noticed that it does happen. So it's preparing the table, and we can see that, okay, it's doing a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and check our numbers. Well, the first 3 articles are zeros. You can see I just published those articles today, so they don't have any views. So the 0 in my views is correct. Now, I also have 209 for the next one. Yep. And let's see, the last one is 1166. And that's the SPR molecules. It looks like everything lined up, which is great. Now I can quickly export it to Google Sheets, where I can use Gemini again to do things like trend forecast or some sort of aggregation. But it also gave me the total accumulated views of 11,011, which is pretty neat. 11 looks like a binary digit, huh? And now I could go ahead and just copy this table and paste it inside of Excel or other notebook app, and I'm ready to go. I didn't have to copy and paste anything from the page, and it did the analysis for me. So let's go ahead and take another look at to see what Gemini and Chrome can do when we go into an article. Okay, this is a pretty neat article on LabOS, an AR augmented reality interface for learning wet chemistry and wet lab techniques by a team at Princeton University, my alma mater. So I want to get a good idea of this article's content. I can just ask Gemini. So you'll notice that in the chat request window in Gemini and Chrome, I have this context switch. I can either use the current tab as context, or I can go and I can add tabs from any of my open pages, allowing them to be added to the context that Gemini uses when it generates a response. This helps when you're creating new content, going across several different pages for content that needs to be aggregated, or even if you're writing blogs, that can help you do research extremely fast. So you can see that it's summarized LabOS for me. It created a 2-part kind of overview, and then it gave me, well, it's giving me still a feedback on the rest of the article, grounded in the content of the page. Now, that's pretty cool. I'm actually going to stop it here because it needs to keep on going to generate the rest of the response, but I am going to click right here So right here on any of my papers blogs, if you click the yellow highlighted text here, you'll be brought to the article. And you can see that as I clicked over to the article, the bounding box that defines where Gemini in Chrome is working alongside the bottom blue bar in the tab shows you that Gemini in Chrome is using this page as context. If you had sensitive information or something that you didn't want to share with an AI over the web, you would want to make sure that you close this out. Now, inside of Gemini in Chrome, you can see the current tab is this one. And we can go back and add LabOS article from my website as additional context, and you can see it's also underlined in blue so that you know that it's working with the context of that page. Now let's go ahead and see what it can do with a PDF, because I think one of the more popular and more powerful features of Gemini in Chrome is that you can work with PDFs. So I'm just going to make sure that it has the right context. So I misspelled it, and I'm pretty sure it'll work anyway. But you can see based on the title of the page, based on the PDF in the page, remember, it's not pulling the title from the HTML because that's not the title. It's not pulling it from the URL because it's not in the URL. It has to go directly into the PDF, analyze the PDF, and see if it can make sense of it. So you'll notice that I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro, but you also have access to 2.5 Flash for faster reasoning, or when you don't want to consume your Pro credits if you use Gemini an awful lot. Now I am on the Pro account, which is Google AI Pro. There's also a Pro Ultra account, which is significantly more expensive. But for the Pro account in Gemini, you get a lot of punch for your dollar. You get credits for VO, you get credits, a very extensive credit allowance for Gemini in the app and Gemini in Chrome. And you also get access to super powerful Notebook LM, which I love that if you haven't checked out Notebook LM. And if we come back to our Gemini in Chrome, you'll see that I just want to understand figure 1 without having to actually look at the description. And I'll say in layman language, just so that it simplifies it for me. So let's go ahead and see if it can actually do that. It's examining the request. Great. Well, it has an extensive ability to read the text on the page, and figure 1 is very well documented, so that you can see that it's pulling in each of the details of the wet lab, the dry lab, what each of the different agents do, plan, code, critique, learn. Then it goes into summarizing the rest of the figure very succinctly. So it's a great way to work with PDFs, work with web pages across multiple pages, and expanding the context significantly. Now, I haven't tested out its limits to see how big of a context it can accept, but Gemini has a 1 million token context window, which is very, very generous. I haven't tested that. So just keep in mind, if you're looking at textbooks or some very large PDF file, you might lose context in Gemini and Chrome, but Notebook LM will give you all the context window that you need across multiple very large files. Until next time, I'm Joshua Berkowitz. Take it easy and enjoy Gemini in Chrome.